Hield used to steal his grandma's milk crates to make basketball hoops.
I'm Batman today. I saved the day. He's still robbing.
Buddy Hield is quickly becoming a fan favorite for the Warriors, especially him and Jimmy's relationship. Buddy Hield's early childhood was not easy. Unfortunately, Buddy Hield's family did not grow up with a lot of money, and he was actually sleeping in the same bed as his 6 other siblings. As Buddy Hield said in the article talking about his early life, they didn't have a lot, but it was always enough. Some of the things he had to do showed his early work ethic, but also showed, the tough life that he was living. He would get up at the crack of dawn before all his siblings to boil water because they didn't have any hot water in his house in order to take a bath. So that's not necessarily basketball related, but he wanted to get to school on time, and he was willing and determined to be the first one to take a bath, and he did push-ups while he waited for the water to boil. Because most kids are not going to want to wake up at the crack of dawn, unwillingly. He chose to do that in order to get his time to bathe and not be late for school. So that shows his work ethic early on. The other thing that was true about Buddy Hield when he was young is that he loved basketball. They didn't have basketball hoops or basketball courts where he lived. So what did he do? He would make his own. You see that crate up there? Remember I said Buddy Hield stole his grandma's milk crates in order to make basketball hoops. Buddy got so good at making them, he would have them done in a couple of hours because they obviously didn't last long, because if somebody dunked on it or whatever, it would come down. It's not very sturdy. But Buddy loved basketball so much, and it even rings true today because we have heard some stories about Buddy Hield never wanting to stop touching a basketball. This is from Raymond Ridler, the Warriors Senior Vice President of Communications, talking about how Buddy Hield never wants to put down a basketball. He's saying in here, between stoppages, practices, timeouts, he always wants to touch the ball. He always wants to have it in his hands. So much so that he does it during the games. Ridler said, quote here, "All the time. Literally, I get a call every night from the NBA a minute into the game. Buddy has the ball on the bench and he has to put it down. You're not allowed to have the ball on the bench because if he drops it, it rolls onto the floor and a guy gets hurt. Obviously, that's not good for the NBA. So every single night, Buddy Hield is trying to hold the ball sitting on the bench, and he has to put it down because that's not allowed." That is how much he loves basketball. He never wants to put the ball down. But like I said, he didn't have a lot of money growing up. He didn't have a ton of opportunities. He just made the best with what he had. And so much so that he played so well that he was recruited to a prep school in America. And after that, he went to Oklahoma for college. And that is where he obviously really took off. Because Buddy Hield was not the 6th pick in the draft for no reason. He had a lot of accolades in college. In 2016, he won College Player of the Year. In 2016, he also won the Jerry West Award, which is named to the top shooting guard of the year in college. He also was the Big 12 Player of the Year twice, and he was All-American First Team. So Buddy Hield was racking up the accolades, and he becomes the 6th pick in the NBA draft by the New Orleans Pelicans. A lot of people probably don't remember Buddy Hield's stint, at least very vividly, with the Pelicans because it was short-lived. Because they traded him for the DeMarcus Cousins trade that was to pair Anthony Davis with DeMarcus Cousins. And we remember that unfortunately DeMarcus Cousins, I think he tore his Achilles. And that was so sad because it was supposed to be, the double big duo. DeMarcus Cousins came from the Sacramento Kings. So Buddy Hield found himself now on the Kings. And he had some good moments there. He was all rookie first team, and obviously we know a very good three-point shooter. But the Kings were never in the playoffs, and so he was never on, national TV all the time, and people saw him, but people obviously didn't get to see him on the big stage a lot, if at all, because his team was not really on TV like that, and they were not in the playoffs. So fast forward, his stint ends with the Kings, and he ends up in Indiana. He has some good moments there, but again, they never, went to the finals or anything like that, and he was only there, I think, 2 years, so he wasn't there too long. But again, he's accomplishing things. It's just not being recognized as much because he's not on the big stage at all times. He became the first player to reach 1,000 threes, the fastest, which is now broken by Duncan Robinson. But at the time, he was the player who did that. And we know that he has made the most threes over anybody over the last 5 seasons. That's over Steph Curry, that's over Klay Thompson. Obviously, we know part of that is because Steph and Klay have had their injuries in that time, but Buddy Hield still made all those threes. Let's not take anything away from him. So then Buddy Hield goes to the 76ers, but he's only there for 1 year. And now he's on the Golden State Warriors, coming up big time in Game 7, hitting 33 points. And in Game 1 against Minnesota, when Steph goes down, he had 22 points in the second half. And his relationship with Jimmy, everybody wants to see their post-game press conferences. They're so funny together. And Pat Spencer, who is on the Warriors, talked about how good of a guy Buddy Hield is. Apparently, Buddy Hield loves donuts, and he found a spot when he was on the Kings, I guess, that he just loved to go get donuts from. He tells Pat Spencer he gives him some money to go get donuts, but Pat Spencer says he takes care of me. He gives me a couple more dollars than I should for getting all the donuts. So basically what Pat Spencer is saying, he gives him the money for the donuts, obviously, but because Pat Spencer's obviously not on as big of a deal as Buddy Hield, he gives him a few extra dollars here and there. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, here, pocket the change. It's just a nice gesture of Buddy Hield. Like, that's just the type of person everybody says he is. And so Buddy Hield's story should inspire people because he came from making his own basketball hoops to becoming one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA and being big time for a playoff team in the playoffs.